full slots for everyone today, but if anyone wants to send in any games for tomorrow, feel free to send those in. Definitely interested in seeing some more games. I was thinking I have a little bit of instructional material prepared as well, but please, anyone who's interested, send a game in to me either on the Discord or on either of the Discords or on chess.com or on the Slotar sign up sheet. Whichever you prefer. But plenty of open slots for tomorrow, but full for today. Our first game today was sent. I think it was sent by Really Why Bov, but it's a game between two people from the chess study group. So I can't remember which one of them was the one who sent it to me, but it promises to be an interesting game. The first, I guess, we should probably take it from White's perspective, since we were looking at the 1G3 theory yesterday or maybe the day before. But 1G3 D5 tends to be the most frequent response to this opening. Let's learn that theory. It's a flank opening from White's perspective, so it'll probably involve giving Black center control and basically a spatial advantage in the center. But overall, it looks like an interesting and playable opening, and potentially something that White could use to transpose into either an open, either a game where there's control for the center, or hey, good morning, Really Why Bob. You're number one on the list. This is your game here. This is the one you played against Hans Joe Hilbert Wolfgang. But two people from the chess study group stream. So I'm definitely excited to see this game. I was interested, actually, after we looked at that G3 game before. I was interested in seeing more games out of 1G3. It's pretty interesting. I mean, it's basically it's basically a modern or perk type modern or perk type opening, it'll probably generally take Black out of theory, but it's an interesting idea because you're basically playing the modern, except it's the modern a move ahead, so you still have chances to control a center with an early like D4 here. Hey, good morning, Aphelion. Thanks for joining the stream. Thanks everyone for being here. But here, yeah. So basically, White has a choice here, which is an interesting choice. White can either play something like Bishop G2 or Knight to F3. Yeah, sure. I'll post that right now. It's a slaughter link. I'm still sort of figuring out what we should do between Discord and. Thank you very much for the subscribe, El Gecko. I really appreciate it, and thank you very much for supporting the stream. Let me give you that link that Jen sent out, that slaughter link. Let's see. Okay. Since I can't really find the link super easily, and that's definitely my fault, here's the link to the Discord. Feel free to submit games on the Discord in like the game submission section. I'll confirm with the time when you send one, but that'll work. The slaughter link works too. I think we're gonna come to kind of a decision on exactly how to handle game submissions in the next week or so. But that'll definitely work. No, thank you very much, El Gecko, and thanks so much, everyone, for being supportive and helping the stream work. I mean, this really works the best if it's if we have a lot of viewer games and we have a lot of viewer material. So thanks all for the help, and thank you very much for supporting the stream, and thanks for the subscribe, El Gecko. I appreciate it. So in this opening, there's a pretty interesting thing going on. Basically it's a flank opening for White, but unlike the modern, White can still make plays for center control. So I think there's basically like kind of a division here between the opening lines. The two most common are Knight F3 and Bishop to G2, both moves that develop pieces and don't directly challenge the center with a pawn. But I'm kind of curious because I think what's played in this game is D4. Yeah, and D4 is actually really interesting because it's basically not, it's not the same general concept as a modern or perk. It's basically like it's basically now a queen's pawn game in which white has played g3. Like, it doesn't really matter which move comes first between g3 and d4. It's like a queen's pawn game where white has made the choice to develop the bishop on the fianchetto first. The other moves like the immediate bishop to g2 turn this much more into a modern type game. So it's interesting. d4 was what was played in this game, so this becomes a much more center-oriented game as opposed to a modern flank perk. But it's interesting where g3 basically provides the ability to transpose into either, and that's kind of an interesting general concept. Either works, and either becomes a playable game. So here, knight f6, either bishop g2 or knight f3 are the ones that make sense given this move order. Bishop g2, c6, knight f3, and now you can barely tell that it was 1 g3 in this game. It's basically a queen's pawn game, semi-Slav with c6, and white, if he wants, can play c4 the next move. c4 is a little bit complicated here because it's not like a normal queen's gambit where white can basically almost completely secure the recapture of the c4 pawn. But here, with knight f3, it's much more recognizable as a queen's pawn game than it is as a 1 g3. So it's interesting how white has that choice: either make it a flank opening or make it a queen's pawn game with a fight over center control and pawn structure. So bishop g4, castles, and then basically their first move that's sort of a deviation from theory. Here, this is still a very widely played position, probably gotten to more frequently out of 1 d4 than 1 g3. But this is like well-established queen's queen's pawn game theory. Still 1,200 games here. Hey, good morning, Jack Bellows. How are you? Hey, and thanks very much for the follow, Big Green. I appreciate it. Thank you. But yeah, so here, it's basically an interesting game where it's a queen's pawn game. White doesn't have the c4 push, but it's black's move here. So black has a few options. The most commonly played moves are knight bd7 or e6. Black actually tries something which is interesting here, but I think has kind of a tactical shortcoming. So here, black plays queen d7, which I actually think is a fine idea. So queen to c8. I think either queen to c8 or queen to c8 might be the better way to support it. But I understand the idea that basically the queen's going to start an early attack on the white king side. This does look like some potential vulnerability here. Might not be immediate. It might be like begin with h5. But it's sort of a mirror of what you generally see out of white in the queen's pawn game. So bishop h3 I think is bishop h3 I think is probably the the idea behind queen d7, but this does run into a quick knight e5. I don't know if that's what was played, but yeah. So after knight e5, white can take this bishop and have a pretty good position. He's got the bishop pair. This is a piece attacking the king side, but it's a little bit disorganized. So I think allowing knight e5 there probably isn't the best idea for white. I think instead, isn't the best idea for black. I think that trade plays out well for white. So forking the queen and bishop here after queen d7 may not be the way that black wants to go. So I think queen c8 maybe. If the goal is to play h3, that could potentially work. Knight e5 can be met with bishop h3. Hey, and thank you very much for the follow, not GM. Thanks a lot for that, and yeah, thank you for joining the stream. So queen c8, I think is probably the best way to to execute the bishop h3 attack over queen d7. Otherwise, the what's in the opening book. I mean, that idea I think is novel and cool, and it's an interesting idea for Black to try. But I think knight BD7, which is the most popular book move, is probably objectively the best. But I like Queen C8. It's just Queen C8 helps this idea be executed a little better. But overall, I understand it. So Queen D7 ultimately ends up potentially trading the knight for the bishop. No, unfortunately, Tarasha, thank you for joining the stream. But the next available slots are for tomorrow during the 10 a.m. stream. I'm actually stoked that there's so much interest. But if you send a game, I'll get it in for the 10 a.m. stream tomorrow. But full for this morning and tonight, which is awesome. Really nice of everybody to help give plenty of material. Just send the link to Rosh, and I'll put it on for tomorrow at during the 10 a.m. stream. So here, knight g5, white chooses not to trade bishops here, or to trade the knight for the bishop here. I think white probably should trade the knight for the bishop. I think it's a better minor piece, and the value of the bishop pair is definitely something. So overall, knight takes g4, knight takes g4, e4, and here basically white gets a good discovery. I think knight gf6 is the best. I don't think that this knight needs to be sacrificed at this point. But it is. So here we can play through this. Overall, this position gets interesting. So I'll slow it down again. But queen d1, g5, bishop e3, bishop queen c7, and overall, it's white definitely has a lead because black has sacrificed a piece, but now black is actually exerting some force on the king side. It's probably his best option as being down a piece, I think probably here either queen b1 or queen e2. This position overall is pushed much more towards equality because black is able to secure the quick kingside attack that he needs. Thanks Tarash, appreciate it. I will I'll add it for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thank you. So f5, d5, knight e5, bishop takes a7, and now black basically with this open f3 square has a good powerful outpost for the knight. This is going to create some opportunities. It's in for that. It's in for that time slot, Tarash. Thank you very much for. No problem. But it's added for tomorrow's stream at 10 a.m. Thank you very much for sending it. So knight f3, I think knight f3, king h1, and overall, white has white has a piece advantage here, so he has a lot of material that he's able to sacrifice. But overall, this f3 posting of the knight offers white some serious positional compensation. King h1, h5, bishop g2. And black is attacking aggressively. I think with sound play, white will be able to ultimately, hold this advantage. But this is pretty tricky. Requires good tactically resourceful defense by white. He gets it. He gets he does this through a counterattack on the king. But this is complicated. I want to take so it's a good win for white, and an interesting game for sure. So I think an error here was black probably shouldn't have allowed the knight e5 move. Knight takes g4 is moves the game to be better for white. Bishop, what ended up playing out offered white more center control, and the knight ended up taking the bishop anyways. I feel like from here, after the knight is exchanged for the bishop, white is somewhat better. White challenges for the center, and then black hangs the knight on g4, or sacrifices the knight on g4. So overall, white's gotten the better side of this opening. That said, black makes a good effort attack. It's black's best. Black, who's now down a piece, is correctly aiming for an aggressive kingside attack where he might be able to equalize materially. Maybe I want to stop this game at the point where it gets the very closest. But it gets interesting for sure. There's a lot of tactics here. E takes f3 seems to equalize for black. Rook f2, I guess, is the response. Bishop f2 can't be played because this h2 pawn's getting threatened. Rook f2, and then bishop d6, and then the rook can't play to g2, but the rook can play to g1. Here, I guess what you do is you set up queen to h4, and then maybe rook up, rook to h8. But yeah, this is evaluated as equal, which is interesting. I guess I'm trying to think of exactly how black ends up matching this, but we will see. I mean, this obviously, if white gives back a piece, then sure. But I'm sort of interested in like the ideas that are like rook h7, rook h8, threatening the h2 pawn. I don't know how black's gonna defend that against enough pieces, because I'm just sort of counting them. But like, let's say like bishop to d4. Hey, yeah, thanks, Gobar. Yeah, thanks for stopping by. The Candidates is a good tournament. I was actually watching John Spielman's stream. I thought he was handling it pretty well. I do think that he can provide pretty insightful analysis to a Grandmaster game. But anyways, free shout out to John Spielman's stream on the Candidates, because I think he handles that topic pretty well. Yeah, he probably is. At the end of the day. But I enjoyed his stream, and I thought he explained he's really got the the chess credentials to cover that in a sophisticated way. He's kind of it's tricky to watch the Candidate Masters and to make it understandable to me, even like he does ultimately say like sometimes and then you just have to play chess. And from that point, it's kind of tricky to see. It's kind of tricky to know what he means by that. I guess he probably means like assemble a plan. But I think his streams are great. So I'm gonna give a shout out to him as being a very strong Candidates coverage. Don't know too much else about him, but his stream I thought was well done. And if people are interested in watching. Watching a chess, watching a real chess grandmaster annotate the games. It's tough with a guy like that because he plays at such a high level. His challenge is making it understandable to an audience, and I think he does it pretty well. So anyways, that was a stream I was personally enjoying for the Candidates. So anyways, free shout out to him. I think he's doing a good job with that. But yeah, anyways, just an idea. Okay. So here, yeah, this pressure on h2 is pretty. I think black's gonna have pretty good chances out of this. But I'm really curious because this line is not. Yeah, so I guess this is the line that makes the most sense for me. Looking at the black player is trying to get g3 and then potentially g2 played. So when I see equality here, I sort of wonder about. I mean, but anyways, this is a really interesting position. But when I see equality here, I wonder about the practical comp of black. So black was able to down a piece, get a pretty solid attack going. But ultimately with bishop g3, white finds a tactically resourceful defense. Really tactically complicated position. But yeah, let's take a look after g4. I was sending a shout out to John Spielman. He's a really good commentator for the candidates. I'm not a GM. I'm an NM. But yeah, I thought John Spielman made a pretty understandable general. I thought he did a good job with that. Yeah. So anyways, I was getting a lot out of that stream. So I think nah, you know, honestly, I think that, I mean, the only thing is important to me is making the material free. I really think chess lessons should be free. That's sort of the key part of this. You know, I don't, you know, I think that chess lessons should be free. So, you know, I don't know the paywalls or, you know, what it takes to make a Chessable course. But I have absolutely no interest in doing anything where I'm receiving any kind of compensation. I want to make my lessons completely free, and I want that to make everyone else's lessons completely free. So yeah, anyways, that's the idea. I enjoy doing this. This is fun for me, and I think big picture, you know, chess lessons can be free, so they should be free. That's why I'm doing this. I'm hoping others will take this idea and run with it. Anyways, let's see. So here, mostly tactical study, to be honest. You can pretty much get to 2000 studying almost exclusively tactics. You need to be very careful. No, I really appreciate all you guys being supportive, and that is the goal here. You know, my ideal situation is one in which you know, a bunch of GMs start giving completely free lessons, and then you know, my analysis becomes less important. But that's my thinking on this. I think I would get a lot of benefit out of that, and I think a lot, you know, the rest of the world would too. And I think it's possible. So that's the logic. Anyways, this game is very interesting, super tactical. White gets that early lead, but black, you know, has this great attack down material. And I think it's great. I think you know, both sides had some really good. White had good tactical. So in order, black, I think, made some errors in the opening. White gets an attack going, or basically black gets an attack going down material. It's a pretty good attack. It looks like it plays out to equality according to the engine, but I don't think we have time to calculate it all the way through. No, sorry, Darkslide. Next slot is available during this stream tomorrow morning. But if you send the link now, I will review it at 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. So yeah, no, thanks for that. Yeah, no, please send your game though, Darkslide. I'm super happy to super happy to look at it. But yeah, anyways, this is basically what happens is white gets up material through good execution, and then black comes up with a really good attack and a lot of tactical complexity that it would take a while to go through. And then white deflects the attack and wins with a good attack on the king. In terms of improvements here, I think black's queen c8 is stronger than queen to d7. It maintains the same idea, which is this bishop to h3. Yeah, thanks, Bronx Knight. The stream, I'll link the Discord. But if you post games here, I'll get him on as soon as the time is available. But yeah, so Queen C8, I think beats Queen D7 here, and overall, I think yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of if there's a way for White to navigate out of this, out of this difficulty. Maybe Bishop G2 here, potentially threatening to take on F3. A big part of this attack was the strength of this outposted knight on F3, and maybe if it was removed or proactively blocked, this threat would become less of a problem. Engine pointing towards B6, winning the bishop, and getting White's material back. I guess I would say bishop takes A2 is probably not optimal. The engine's suggesting queen H5. Maybe bishop G2 could be playable. But one of the issues with bishop takes A7 is that the B6 basically equalizes. One of White's basically White's key advantage here is that he's up material. And if he can, and basically if he can hold this all together, this basically will equalize materially for White. What about Queen D4 after B6? I guess I would say, there's Knight F3 is the tactical response. But yeah, so I would point towards bishop takes A7. Yeah, I mean, it's a win, but I think the tactical response here is knight to F. Is basically B6. This equalizes and removes White's most key advantage, which is his material lead. If Black equalizes materially, then he's got good threats on the king side. Anyways, that's that. There are a few improvements, but most of them are tactical, so I don't think I can improve on what the engine will give you on that. But from a thematic idea, basically playing bishop takes A7, which secures a pawn here, this is not the time thematically to do that. This tempo is important, and maybe bishop. I don't know. Maybe bishop D4. Maybe not. I don't know. Bishop G2 seems like a better way to go about this. Bishop takes A7. Takes a pawn that isn't worth a lot at a time when when White needs to kind of shore up his tactical defense against this attack, which is definitely going to come in. At the end of the day, really tactically complicated. White gets the better side of it, but an interesting game. But the most thematic improvement that I can offer is I think that playing bishop takes A7 at a time when you're getting aggressively attacked, it's just not the time to do that right here. So bishop to G2, I think is probably an improvement. The engine's suggesting like queen H5, or queen H5 to get the queen off of this D file, which could be dangerous. But overall, I think I think White played well, and that's good for him. Good game overall. Black did well after that material. But thank you very much for sending that, Bob. And yeah, please keep sending games. Hilbert, also please keep sending games. They're all interesting and instructive. But thematically, I would just say, if you're on the side of an attack, if I think as a general concept, if you're on the side where you're receiving an attack, it's not the best time to try to win a small amount of material. But interesting game. Thank you for sending that. Let's look at the next one. This one's sent by Chessbra fan. I've played him a few games, but I will send this, I will post this one right now. It's on chess.com. And here we go. Chessbra fan is playing Black here. I haven't seen the game. It looks like a pretty quick win. So um, we can take a look. Um, my guess is that there aren't going to be that many improvements that can be made here. Uh, this is pretty tactically complicated. Wow. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So an 11 move game from Chessbra fan. Interesting. Um, let's look. So it's the yeah, Petrov's gambit, knight to c6, and that's sort of an interesting opening. Basically, the Petrov's is interesting because there's not really an ability to improve much on yeah, no. I think you played well. I mean, it's a good game, and like every other game, it has plenty of things to improve on for both players. But yeah, thank you very much for sending it, Bob, and I appreciate you participating in the stream. Yeah, this is pawn takes c6, bishop c5, bishop takes f2, knight takes. Knight takes, by the way, is very playable here. But it's kind of interesting because up until no, it's all good. Yeah, so I guess this is sort of memorized. Like this is basically queen f6, queen f2, and overall, I mean, this is sort of complicated, right? Like knight takes e4, king to f3, castles. Interesting. This is pretty interesting, the way that this goes. Bishop c5, h3, bishop takes f2, king f2, knight takes, and then overall, yeah. I don't know. I guess this sacrifice is unsound. Things are going very well for white until they aren't. But yeah. Hey, thanks for joining the stream, Kiro. So yeah, so queen f2, king takes, rook there. Interesting. But yeah, I think this opening is kind of unusual, so we can study it. Knight c6, the real Petrov's gambit. In terms of options here, this is a 1 in 1,000 game. The book response is d6, queen e7, and knight takes e4. I've seen both of those. But knight to c6 is interesting. I guess yeah, knight to c6. Let's look at it. This offers white an advantage of about 1.7. This has to probably be this has to be better for white. But black comes up with a pretty good attack. This bishop takes f2 is interesting. Yeah, 1.7, but there are some open lines coming in on the f2 square. Hey, good morning, Justin. Thanks everyone for being here. Yeah, bishop to c5, and then maybe bishop to e2, but yeah, I mean, white's gonna have to deal with a pretty, an aggressive attack here. Black's shown that he's interested in sacrificing material for an attacking position. So what is white's best response? Bishop to e2 or c3? Maybe c3. Yes, Justin. That'll be on for tonight. Yeah. We'll definitely get to that one, Justin. Tonight at 6:05 p.m. Eastern. King f2, knight takes e4, king f3. But yeah. So where's white's error here? Bishop takes. Offers black aggressive compensation. I think it's just in moving this king up, right? And bishop e2 is not the right tempo. With bishop to e2, one of white's key escape squares gets eliminated. White can no longer use e2 as an escape for the king, and in a position this sharp, white needs to basically come up with a move that's gonna try to defuse the attack in some way. So maybe maybe g4 here. The engine is suggesting queen to e1. I'm just kind of curious about the g4 eval. G4 and f5. Okay, f5, yeah. f5 refutes g4, so not g4. Queen e1. I'm king e2 potentially. This is dangerous. Yeah, I mean, black sacrificed a whole piece for this, but this is some sharp play that white's going to have to respond to. King e1 doesn't look playable, so the king has to move to somewhere on the second or third rank. Okay. So king f3, castles, queen e1, queen f6, bishop f4. Yeah, this is rough and difficult for white to play against. This piece sack is dangerous. I wonder if there's ways that white could have sidestepped this, because I'm sort of like, you know, here, maybe there was a better alternative that allowed black less attacking chances. So white plays d3. f3 is given as the number 2 possibility. How about like queen, you know, I almost want to play like queen e2 or knight c3. You know, white has a lot of material to work with to avoid these sharp lines. You know, when you play these super sharp lines, you end up in a situation where, yeah. So all right. So I'm interested in seeing that, Tarash. This is a game between Chessbra fan and this is a game that Chessbra fan sent in. Knight c3, bishop c5, h3 refutes this gambit. Okay, cool. I'm interested. I don't know it, to be honest. It's a pretty aggressive gambit. White's showing 1.5, but yeah, it is definitely an aggressive gambit. F3 is kind of interesting, but yeah, let's look. Knight c3, okay. Bishop c5, h3. Queen d4, and queen f3. Okay. Cool. Yeah, no, that looks pretty refuting, chess fan. Hey, thank you very much for the follow, Johnny. Thank you. Yeah, I like that actually. You know, that's as good. You know, I don't know this opening. So if you know the theory for it, this is you know, I'm happy to defer to your judgment. That looks pretty refuting. So let's look at this opening that Tarash is recommending, because I think that's pretty yeah, that's pretty interesting. So knight c3, and then what are black's possibilities here? Bishop c5 looks like the only one that's in the opening book. I don't know if there's any alternatives. And h3. Yeah, no, not knight c3. It looks good to me. Bishop takes f2. Oh, wait. Sure. Yeah. No. I'm interested. Because you know, otherwise I'm just gonna be kind of going through these games. Pawn takes d3, bishop c5, h3, and yeah. Bishop takes f2 leads to the same sharp line. Okay. Yeah, you know, I don't worry about that kind of thing, Kiro. Like, it's all, you know, there's not enough money in chess, I guess I would say, to make it worthwhile. Chess is a game that's for fun. So I don't get too upset about, you know, younger people being better. They can be better. It's not a big deal to me. Anyways, it's an interesting question, Kiro. Okay, yeah, so Eric Rosen, I guess, has the thing, but yeah, let's look at this. E5, okay. I don't know this line, so I'm super happy to defer it. Okay. E5, knight f3, knight c6. Okay, d3, bishop c5, bishop e2. H4, bishop e2, h5, c3. Yeah, this looks pretty good for white. Cool. Yeah. It's good to me. Um, yeah, yeah. Interesting. So yeah, so it's up a pawn, and cool. But yeah, so maybe I guess I'm fine playing that line. The engine is recommending others that that also work. But let's look at that refutation. This is really interesting. Thank you guys for leading into this, because it's actually it's pretty interesting to see sort of how this goes. I definitely don't know it. I'm trying to think of where I would sidestep this. I guess I sidestep this as early as I don't even take this pawn on e5 in this opening. I usually play like either knight c3 potentially, or yeah, or d4. I probably play d4 the most frequently against this opening. So yeah, white does invite this this sharp attack. Okay, cool. Anyways, this obviously doesn't work for black. So let's first take a look at this game again. This is the way that black wins this game. King plays to f3, castles, and then bishop e2 being a key positional error. On queen e1, I think white is okay, but he's still very much in the midst of this super sharp opening. So that's interesting. Here, king to f3, and then queen f6, and rook to e8. Interesting. If Eric Rosen has a good video on how to refute this, yeah, I'm in favor of that. Otherwise here, bishop c5, and then I don't know. I mean, it sort of feels like you could shut this position down pretty quickly with bishop e3 too, doesn't it? What's wrong with bishop e3? Bishop takes, pawn takes. I mean, that's probably not the purest refutation, but what I feel like bishop e3 is sort of yeah. No, it's cool. I'm actually really curious about all these trappy openings, because the thing is, they're not generally played at master level, so it's good to go back and see kind of what no, the thing is, many masters, or at least I don't know these. Yeah, I don't think GMs would know these types of things. GMs might. I think many NMs would not know these types of things, myself included. Trappy openings sort of fade away. Like, you get to about 1800 and no one tries them against you anymore. Sometimes you can get great results. I mean, I remember about a 2100 beating an IM once in a tournament that I played in out of the Elephant Gambit, and I think that's yeah, no, I mean, that doesn't surprise me, to be honest. I think that's tough to play. That playing that way is tricky, but interesting strategy. But yeah, I feel like bishop e3 shuts this down in kind of a in a way that's not very artistic. Bishop takes e3, pawn takes e3, knight g4, and then like g3 maybe, or queen f3. I mean, this is a pretty artless way to do it. Yeah, the GM did okay. Yeah, so I'm curious, what's the refutation to bishop e3? Because that's probably what I would play here, to be honest. That makes the most sense to me. I mean, obviously, I don't even play knight takes e5, but I'm thinking bishop to e3 is a pretty intuitive way to sort of shut down all the aggressiveness here. Bishop takes e3, pawn takes. I feel like that's pretty effective. I'm not sure if I'd recommend that, but okay. So bishop to e3. Bishop takes e3, pawn takes e3. Oh no, okay. So bishop e3, knight g4. Okay, queen f3. Wait, so knight g4. Wait, I'm confused because it looks like bishop can so bishop takes e3, pawn takes, knight g4, queen f3, queen h4, g3, queen h6. Yeah, I'm pretty unimpressed by this, to be honest. I think queen f4 sort of ends this, right? Yeah. Yeah, no. But I think, all right. So now queen f4, knight takes e3, I guess. Queen takes h6, pawn takes h6. Okay, all right, everyone. I think that's the refutation, or at least the refutation. The artless bishop e3 refutation. Bishop e3, bishop takes e3, pawn takes e3, knight g4, queen f3. Looks pretty solid. Queen h4, g3, queen h6, queen f4. Yeah, black doesn't have a ton of play after that. So bishop e3, I guess I would say. Interesting opening. It sounds like this guy Eric Rosen has done some good work on it. I think by all means learn it there. But that looks like a sufficiently good response to it with this early bishop e3. I think that's what I would play here. There's probably an objectively better move, but that sort of shuts down a lot of the attack. Queen h6, queen f4. Yeah, so white's in pretty good shape here. I think that pawn is a problem. Basically, white has the full center, and if the queens trade off, I think white will win a queenless game pretty easy. I don't know it, chess fan. But how about feel free to send me in another game out of this like tomorrow. It's super interesting and I like seeing it. So thank you very much for sending it over. But this as a takeaway, this is a sufficiently refuting line for this. Bishop e3, bishop takes, knight there, queen f3, queen h4, g3, queen h6, queen f4. That's good enough. But yeah, thank you, chess fan. If you send a game, we'll definitely look at it. Thanks a lot for that. Cool. On to the next one. This one is from Aphelion. Okay, so this is like Rui Lopez main line. And here, this is some I know this is some pretty this is some pretty tough theory. So yeah, basically here, you're in well-established theory. On move 16 here, there's plenty of games. Yeah, I mean long. Rui Lopez type theory here. So I don't know. I mean, is the best option here memorizing opening lines? Like, I guess that's probably the way to learn this the most effectively. Pawn takes, bishop g4. Yeah, this looks pretty solid. Yeah, interesting. Okay, cool. So in terms of this is the Marshall attack main line. Let's go through it. B5, bishop b3, castles, d5, knight takes, and yeah. I guess I'm sort of curious, like, where is it defined as the Marshall attack? It becomes the Marshall attack once d5 is played. So here a6, knight f6, mainline Rui Lopez, bishop on e7. And then bishop b5, bishop b3, castles, and we're in a closed Rui Lopez game. And then the defining move as the Marshall attack is after c3 and before white can play d4, d5. E takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, rook takes e5. Marshall attack. Let's look at this position. So this is pretty simplified, but it's well-established theory. The book theory, which is still there, is c6. But I guess I'm sort of interested in looking at why the book theory is what it is. Um, uh, Knight f6 maybe could be good. Uh, you know, um, what are the characteristics of this position? I don't think that the center is pretty much neutralized, although white can, get the center if he wants to play d4. The, this fianchetto opportunity for black, these bishops could become strong. Both sides have bishop pairs here. I think, yeah, after bishop to f6, the rook will be ejected. So like bishop to b7 or c6 before bishop to f6. And I think black's in pretty good shape here. I don't know. Let's look at the eval. I bet I would guess it's slightly better for black, but okay, so it's about equal, slightly better for white. Yeah, I mean, the center's neutralized. But both sides sort of have to establish a plan. I guess, as you look at this type of thing, I'm sort of curious about what to do in terms of, basically what to do in terms of, thinking about the opening as opposed to memorize the, between the Stafford game or Brilliant Refutation of Tricky. That's a difficult question. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know what I don't know these lines well enough to make a defined answer. But thank you very much for asking the question. Yeah, I don't know these I don't know these obscure trappy opening lines. I think it's great that you guys keep sending them because it gives me an opportunity to learn them a little better. But I don't have a pronounced opinion on that. Thank you very much for sending. No, like, it's awesome. It's actually great for me. I get to learn these opening lines. At master level, they're just not played very frequently anymore, and you can kind of get past them in your chess career without ever actually effectively learning them. So it's really cool that I'm getting an opportunity to look at them. It kind of presses me in a situation where I'm not particularly strong, which is the way that one improves. Yeah, no, I mean, I honestly don't know what opening line you're referring to. And apparently, basically, that I don't know, which is completely fine. I'm happy to not know these, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to get to learn them, hopefully with you guys. So yeah, thank you. Please keep sending these super trappy lines. I learn a lot from them, really. So it's cool. Thanks very much for that, Chess Fan. But I can't give you no, we're still going on these. There's a good number of games left. But these trappy opening lines, it's interesting. This is a great opportunity for me to learn them. So please keep sending them. Anyways, thanks for that. Yeah, here we have a very booked up Rui Lopez line. And I think, either bishop c6 is the mainline response. But I think, as opposed to memorizing 11 moves of opening theory, let's try to fundamentally think about what's going on here. I think white is probably going to try to start an attack here. White's has better control of the center. d4 is going to give white control of the center for the rest of the game, probably. c5 becomes a push that white will be able to play, isolating the pawn on. Cool. Yeah, no, thanks, Chess Fan. I'll put that in for tomorrow's stream. Cool, thank you. But yeah, so here, c6 is the book move. Black needs to come up with some type of move to move the knight. Knight f6 looks fine to me. c6 also looks fine to me. Yeah, overall, I think it's pretty. This position has a lot of play in it. There's still 1,500 opening games here, but in terms of, I think in terms of improving in chess, like, it's better to understand sort of what's going on in the position than to understand, the move order 16 moves in. GMs will memorize the move order 16 moves in, but I would say you don't have to get to a pretty high level. But understanding this situation is important. Threats on knight f6, pretty much regardless of what the threat on knight f6 is, c6, white's going to respond with d4 and control the center for the rest of the game. I don't know if that makes c5 a priority to challenge the center. I'm guessing black instead probably wants to start an attack. White also wants to start an attack. And if c6 is played as opposed to bishop, as opposed to like bishop b7 here, the attack, the correct diagonal for the bishop is going to be the c8 to h3 diagonal, as opposed to the b7 to h1 diagonal. So I think ultimately this comes to a still in book situation. But one in which black is attacking with strong bishops and appears to be down in the center and down one pawn materially, or two pawns materially, if I'm counting right. So this is a pretty interesting way that this can play out. Black's bishops are better to the point. Black's bishops and black's development, white's development with all these bishops on the or with all these pieces on the 8th rank. Is pretty, restricted. So the engine actually takes this to eval to a completely even position. We're still in book too, by the way, or we've just exited it. But this is super interesting. Maybe rook d6. I guess rook h6 isn't quite playable. I'm wondering if black can continue on with this attack by bringing the rook on the d file into the play here. F4, bishop f3, and queen f1 seems to be. I think again we're still in book, but yeah, this position plays out in a pretty well established place. I haven't played Puzzle Rush in a while. I prefer Puzzle Battle, but Puzzle Rush, I have to think, at least in the past it was low 40s, I think. I think low 40s. I don't know. But it's been a long time since I've actually done Puzzle Rush. I like Puzzle Battle for tactics training at this point. Let's look at that, Aphelion. I'm pretty curious. Bishop b3, castles, c3, d5, I mean, it's up to you. But I prefer Puzzle Battle. I think it makes it more fun to be playing against somebody. Keeps me more focused on every individual game. d4, bishop d6, rook e1, queen h4. So black gets this early attack on the king side as opposed to white's better center. We can transpose it from like move 10 here, bishop to b7 maybe, but yeah, it's really up to the player. If you're seeing this in a live game against someone who isn't a grandmaster, it's way more important to understand the fundamentals of the position as opposed to this theory, which as well established as it is. Bishop b7, I would be tempted to play. I understand that's not the theory main line, but basically, white has constricted development, black has relatively good development and attacking chances on the king side, and white has the center. And the way that the one can maximize on that is by trying to play more quickly towards the objective goal of attacking on the king side as black. Rook e8, rook e1, and overall, this turns into an interesting game. Black's attacking on the queen side, and that exchange sacrifice felt a little bit unnecessary here. Bishop takes c4 is, yeah, bishop takes c5 is a blunder. I think just king f7, king e6, king d4 is a pretty straightforward way to get this moving forward. But yeah, thank you very much for sending the game, Aphelion. And yeah, this is, I think that's the main difference here. But yeah, well-established theory, and then going in here, yep, yeah, looks like smooth sailing, good chances for black, close to equality. Yeah, very much, thank you very much for sending that game, Aphelion, I appreciate it. I mean, I'm sure you could do it in less than that. You know, NM is not that difficult. NM, you basically just, if you focus hard enough on tactical study, you can get pretty close to NM almost on that in isolation. Yeah, no, I think that, yeah, it's a good game. But this, yeah, smooth sailing for black. A heavily booked line playing roughly to equality. And then it looks like bishop takes c5 is just a focus error. Hey, you can join me on here now. Are you asking? Oh, how long did it take me? I guess I would say probably about 7 or 8 years of tournament play. I started like playing tournaments very casually early, but in terms of getting from like 900 to 2200, that probably took about 7 or so years, 7, 8 years, from when I was about 12 to when I was about 20, 12 or 13 to about 20. I started too late, so I never really took chess seriously enough to have much of a chance of becoming a grandmaster. So my hope is really just to make this instruction more more available. Yeah, I think with that strategy, number one, I think you can probably get to almost master level. I don't know. It depends on how seriously they take it and how efficiently they're studying. If you do nothing but tactics, probably like 4 or 5 years. But yeah, it's a good question. I think of 4 or 5 years potentially. But lots and lots of tactical study. It probably depends more on hours allocated to it than it does, hours allocated than it does number of years you've been doing it. But thank you very much for sending that game, Aphelion. You played right, and I think really pretty much correct until bishop takes c5, and that's just a tactical error. If you end up no, thank you very much for sending it in, and yeah, thank you always very much for contributing to the stream. You played well. This is just a tactical error, and I think with sufficient tactical study, like puzzle rush, puzzle battle, chess tempo, yeah, I agree with ChessFan on that one. It's been I've been playing for about 10 years or more. I guess I've been playing for 18 years. But it's been fun 100% of the way, and that's why I've stuck with it, and that's why but I've never taken it seriously as an occupation. Anyways, this is a good game by Aphelion, and thank you very much for sending it in. Yeah, no, I think that's totally it, Aphelion. I think if you do that, you will absolutely improve. It may take a while, like probably 3 months, to really notice an over-the-board difference. But it's just that if you just stick with the tactics training, you're going to be in good shape, Aphelion. I promise. You will notice an improvement over the board, and even in online blitz too. So here's so let's look. This is Big Green's game, and let's look. This is a Queen's Gambit declined with an early g3. I'm sure this is well-established opening theory again. Knight f3, bishop f5, bishop g2, e6. Queen's gambit declined. Bishop f4, interesting. Yeah. So bishop f4 is an interesting play. Um, you know, the dark squared bishop does need to get developed here. But I think in terms of priority, allocating to knight c3 first is probably the way that development would go. Bishop f4 doesn't really make too many direct threats. It prevents probably bishop to d6. Let's see if there's any theory here. But the main advantage of bishop to f4 is to try to deflect bishop to d6. If you don't deflect bishop to d6, then the value of getting bishop to d6 is the idea that if bishop to d6 is played, you would trade for it. But since that's not even really the best the best objective response, I think the priority of playing the priority of playing bishop f4 goes down. If bishop f4 is meant to prevent bishop to d6, but it tends to make more sense after like bn d7 or something like that. So I guess here I would lean more towards developing the knight or castling. But but bishop f4 is a developing move. I mean, definitely the priority is developing moves, but I guess I would say that knight to c3 or castles is a better way to handle it. Knight to c3, and then the opening probably goes in a relatively, uncomplicated way. But yeah, this looks good. This is the opening theory and not the actual game. But yeah, so let's go back to the game. The game has bishop to f4, which is not the preferred opening book move, but that's okay. It's a developing move, which is good. Bn d2. Yeah, might as well. I think bishop to b4 is probably not black's best response here. Yeah, bishop to d6 is getting recommended. Queen to b6 is getting recommended. But bishop to b4 doesn't really establish any threats, and it helps white to develop the knight that's been undeveloped to this point. If anything, bishop to b4 sort of justifies bn d2. Knight e4, castles, queen a5, knight b3. And yeah, I think white's basically got a pretty good playable game here. Faster development, and an opportunity to an opportunity to advance. So I don't know, knight e5, castles, f3. I guess this idea of playing knight e5 to play f3 and eject the knight from e4 is a valuable one for white. That comes up a lot. It comes up, in a lot of positions that are relatively closed in the Dutch opening. But this tactical thought, knight to e5, f3, is probably the best place. Is probably a good strategic idea. Bishop f4. Pawn takes d5, rook c1, and I think it's relatively equal. What would the improvements be? I think basically this c6 pawn is not super valuable to attack. It basically it does prevent. It basically is well defended. Having a semi-open file for the sake of having a semi-open file is something, but it doesn't really provide the same practical value as something that it's not the biggest improvement that white can make here. the strongest piece for black in this situation is this knight on e4. The knight on e4 restricts development in a few places. It prevents basically bishop d2 from being playable to knock out this bishop on b4. This trade here, too, I think is probably not that helpful for white. I'm looking at rook c1, maybe, to retake on pawn takes c4. But in general, c takes d5, e takes d5, and I think white's basically traded the c pawn, which is exerting some center control, for the e6 pawn, which is not exerting too much center control, basically just serving as a support point for this this pawn on d5. So here, I guess I would say probably rook to c1. This c, I understand pawn takes c5 because the c4 pawn does probably require some defense. It's not getting defended here, and some action is necessary. But pawn takes d5 trades a good pawn for a not as good pawn. So that's not really the way to do it. Instead, playing rook c1 allows you to trade this c4 pawn for this d5 pawn, and that actually is a good trade. So when evaluating the center play, which pawn are you trading the c4 pawn for is the most important part in evaluating this position. Here you're trading the c4 pawn for the e6 or the c6 pawn after black's recapture. Here, if you plan for it to be traded by pawn takes c4, the improvement is either rook c1, pawn takes c4, or a different piece. So like queen c1 would probably work and be a good eval. But something does need to be done about the c4 pawn. But it should be traded for a pawn that is a favorable trade for you, as opposed to an unfavorable trade. So rook c1 ultimately results in pawn takes c4 getting traded for rook takes c4, and basically the pawns that trade are this c4 to d5. Knight e5 has pretty much the same effect. I don't know what the f6 response to it is. After f6, knight d3. And c4 remains untakeable because this knight is providing a larger threat on b4. But yeah, this c takes d5 and moves like it should be evaluated under the framework of what the ultimate pawn that you're trading for is, and what the ultimate pawn structure is. So rook c1, pawn takes c4, rook takes c4, and you've traded for a good pawn. The other way, you've traded for a less good pawn. So c takes d5 I think is a fixable error here. Knight d2, knight takes d2, e4, knight takes, and basically after this position, white goes from having a pretty good healthy development and a positional advantage to a much less clear sort of equal position. This is probably the biggest strategic mistake of this game, trading this c4 pawn for this e6 pawn. In terms of further play, by this point we're seeing equality. Queen, yeah. So this is a good tactic. Bishop g4 is a big error for black. And yeah, white ultimately capitalizes on some big tactical errors for black. So it's a good game, a well played game for white, for sure. But yeah, the only the instructional improvement that I can make is deciding when to trade pawns in the center. And if you look at it as this c pawn being traded for this e6 pawn, it becomes a much clearer question to solve. Rook c1, rook takes c4 is a it is basically rook c1, pawn takes c4 is a trade that's good for white. So when evaluating center pawn trades, that I think is a helpful way to think about it. C5 also very playable here. This in this case, there's no pawn trade, so that's a different way to play it. C4, creates restriction on the black position. Basically with C4 or C5, this black will try to undermine eventually with B6, but it's going to be a time-consuming process for black. Also, this C5 traps this bishop. On A3, this bishop is going to have to be traded for it's going to have to be played at A5, and then the knight's going to be able to take it if white wants that trade. It's probably a favorable trade for white. So yeah, otherwise I think a good game. Bishop F4 probably not the best developing move, but a developing move. So fundamentally it makes sense. And then on this trade here. The instructional value is looking at which pawn you're actually trading for when making a pawn trade in the center in a queen's pawn game. In this case, it's c4 for e6, and the c4 pawn is a lot more valuable there. So I think that trade is one to revisit. No, for sure. I think c5. Yeah, so sorry, I just missed the chat for a second. C5 I think is probably the best play. But you do need to do something with this c4 pawn. So you either should make a move where you are the one responding for the trade, or make the move where you are or make the c5 move, which has its own tactical characteristics, but ends up trading this knight on b3. For this bishop on a5 potentially. So yeah, no, thank you very much for sending the game, Big Green. I think that's probably the point where I can be helpful. Evaluate central pawn trades with the framework of what pawn you're actually trading for. Of course. Thank you very much for sending the game, Big Green, and I love the games that I'm getting from the Chess Study Discord. It's great. I'm super happy doing these analysis, and it's really helpful for everyone to be sending games in to be reviewed. Thank you very much, Big Green. I really appreciate it. Let's take a look at the next one. The next one is from Reddit, and this is a this is a PGN, I think. So I'm just gonna open up a new analysis board. Interesting. Okay. Okay. 1 second. I just have to parse this thing, right? Okay, cool. So this is a game that got sent in from Reddit. Oh wait, did that not work? Oh, weird. Wait, what happened with this? So someone sent me an incomplete game on Reddit, unfortunately. Here, let me try to paste the whole thing as a fen. This is pretty interesting. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. All right, we can do this as an analysis. Hold on. I guess it requires a setup here. So let's go through that. This is interesting. No one sent me a game in this format before, so I'm sort of curious about it. Cool. Yeah, no, for sure. But this is actually really interesting. Let's look at this. Really curious. How does someone parse a fen? Uh, hmm. Wild. Okay. Cool. This is actually really interesting. Thank you guys for bearing with me on this. I'm actually, yeah, I'm pretty curious about how this situation works. Like, it's a really weird, yeah, no. So this is actually really interesting. So it's fen. Yeah, I've never actually worked with this, so that's cool. As someone who does some work with computers, this is actually kind of a cool exercise for me. No, I don't. But this is, I mean, I have in the past. But supposedly chess.com, takes fen. Paste the game fen. Oh, so is it? That's interesting. So you're supposed to bring it into ChessBase, and then you're supposed to export it as a different type of fen. Yeah, I might. I'm just gonna move on to the next one, to be honest. I don't want to slow us down here, but interesting. I'll figure out how that works, because that's a new one for me. Yeah, no. That's pretty interesting actually. Well, I mean, chess.com says it did. Maybe I'm just, I was basically sent it. Here, I'll post exactly the string. I'll post the string because I can. Oh, it reaches the character limit. Oh, come on. I'll do it in two pieces. So this is the first. Okay, so that's the first part of the fen, and then the second part of the fen is this. So I posted it in two pieces, but yeah, those are the two pieces of that fen. The pre-fen move and the post-fen move, and I don't know how to parse it. I mean, I assume without knowing how to do it, I assume how it works is you have like a pre-set up position. Like I assume it's an end game, right? Or like a game that starts mid. It starts in the middle of the game. Huh. Okay. Is it actually that? Because I will parse it that way if that works. Interesting. No, I don't think it's D4. I don't think. I think CX is. I think it's a game that's starting in the middle. Yeah, no, I don't think it's that. Anyways, I'm getting a, yeah, it was interesting. I'd really like to look at it, because I appreciate the person for sending it in, but I don't think I can really do much there if it's not parsable. Okay. Anyways, the next game from Spotkins. Thank you very much for sending it in, Mikey, and yeah, no, I appreciate it. Bishop f4 is a response to the Dutch defense. Interesting, and not a line that I know a ton about. It looks playable, but let's take a look at the opening theory book here. Here I always, basically I'm not really a d4 player, but g3 is the most popular move as white here. Bishop f4 looks interesting, and there's plenty of games with it. So knight f6, e3, b6, bishop d3. And here, white's got an early bishop development. Potential opportunities, maybe bishop takes c7, threat at some point. C4, knight c3, knight f3, and basically I see white establishing a pretty standard big center against the Dutch, where white has more center control, and basically black has hit f5 as his main challenge of the center. This is interesting. Okay. So here, g6, queen f3, d5. White is looking solid. Now this, basically d5 sort of invalidates the b6 move. b6 and d5 are not a good pair together, because the main purpose of b6 is to fianchetto your bishop, and with d5 you close the bishop's long diagonal. Hey Hyperion, how are you? Yeah, so that b6, basically, I think d5 is an error here. I think the best play is probably knight to c6. I mean, black needs to play something that responds to this queen f3 threat. It's probably knight c6, bishop to b7. B6 as an opening move is, it basically, its primary purpose and pretty much its only purpose is to fianchetto the bishop on b7. I mean, it could potentially be used as a support for a c5 pawn break, but yeah, Thanks, Ryan. If you post it on my Discord, I'll post a link to my Discord right now. In like the game submission section, I will add it to the list. We'll get to it tomorrow, for sure. But thankfully we have a full slate of games for this morning and for tonight. So yeah. So queen f3, d5, bishop c4 is an interesting tactical play. I get it, right? The bishop's not takeable, but I like the tactics of it. But conceptually, it's not that great a move in terms of advancing your position if black doesn't take it. Tonight at 6:05 p.m. Eastern. But yeah, tonight we already have a full set of, I think, 6 or 7 games. So any new games we'll get to tomorrow. But please keep sending them. It's awesome to have enough material. It's great. I really appreciate everyone's participation and helping out. So d5, bishop c4 I don't think is the way to challenge d5. You may not want to challenge d5 here. d5 is a move that causes black some problems. This d5 makes bishop b7 weak, and that is something that helps white. So bishop c4, considering that it's well enough defended that bishop can't really play bishop takes d4, is a little bit. I think there's better developing moves that move white's position forward in a more straightforward way. If you want to attack, I think h4 is a good opportunity. This king, often sees some problems in the Dutch opening. h4, h5, pawn takes g6 offers white some good attacking chances. I think, I understand bishop c4, and definitely it's cool to try to get that rook, but I think h4 is an attack that's a little bit more substantial. But yeah, so overall, I think basically white's got a pretty good position. Bishop d3. So bishop b7 now, and then bishop b7, by the way, doesn't really stop this this pawn takes c4 as being untakeable. Then it would just be queen takes b7. So this line for white is, I think white needs to do more developing here. This bishop maneuver is interesting, and it's good to get attacks in. But I think basically the point of an attack is that you want to establish a lot of basically a lot of power behind your attack. You want to have all your pieces involved in an attack to make sure that it's basically well supported when you begin to advance it. These types of attacks are cool, and they will put pressure on your opponent, but they're relatively easy to deal with. The attacks that you're really going for in the big picture are ones where you have all of your pieces involved, and the opponent has to get all of his pieces involved, and you're a little bit faster in advancing all of your pieces against all of his pieces, or his pieces are displaced so he can't defend with his pieces efficiently. These types of small attacks, may win you a few games, but they're not really what you're going for at the highest possible level. So here I would advocate like knight to e2, knight to d2, knight to c3, but things that attacking is great, but you don't want to play attacking moves that are easily responded to, or responded to in ways that will improve your opponent's overall position. So there are actually some very interesting early attacks in particularly the Leningrad Dutch, but they are like h4, h5, and you can put a lot of pressure on the black king side quickly. But it's an interesting idea. No, that's interesting. I don't know what that is. I coded it from I used React, but yeah, it's a React-based app. React is a good framework. But yeah, so bishop takes f5, knight takes f4, pawn takes, queen takes, rook there. And white ends up getting a very early win here. So yeah, this aggressive attacking strategy will definitely win you some games. It's great that you saw the bishop takes f5 tactic. That's solid. Good work, capitalizing tactically on that. But in terms of early attacks against the Dutch, there are some fun ones that you can do, but they involve like h4. And actually, this is a great win. But just since we have a few minutes here, I'm super. I think I can show you some cool h4 related attackings here. d4, f5, and then there's some crazy lines. The Dutch has a lot of crazy lines actually, which are pretty fun to play. I think knight f3, knight f6, c4, g6, and now there's some stuff that comes out of h4 that gets super dangerous. Yeah, so this is an established Dutch line. So let's just sort of go through what happens here. I don't know who wins this game, but if you want to put get a lot of practical compensation against the Dutch, you can do it in this way. Like bishop takes maybe, but yeah, anyways, d4, f5, g3, knight f6. I'm looking for more h4 games. There really are some here, so I want to make sure that I'm playing the transposition that generates the most of them. g3, g6, h4. Okay, so there's 32 master games that play out of this. So on this, d4, f5, g3, g6 as the first first two moves. Then white can respond with h4, knight f6, h5, knight takes, rook takes, pawn takes, e4. And this is a pretty fun attack to play for black. I think it could potentially win you some games aggressively at a class level. So e4, basically, white at the cost of that exchange is generating a mating attack already on move 6. So this is probably a pretty fun game to play. King f8, bishop h6, e6, knight c3, queen f6. And it sort of continues on. I don't know if this ends up being a win or how accurately black plays it. But with inaccurate play, white can really win this one. So anyways, that's probably how to play against the Leningrad Dutch. The G3, G3 won't always guarantee you the Leningrad Dutch or an early G6. Say instead knight f6, bishop g2, and then g6, and then h4. But h4, h4, and then knight takes h5, h4, h5, knight takes h5, rook takes h5 is a theme that if you like these super aggressive attacks, that could be a fun opening for you to play. This, it is a vulnerable structure for black. Black has to play accurately to prevent these types of things. But I would look at that theory because I think it may be a good style fit for you here, Mikey. I think this is a cool opening to play. I actually got it played against me by like a super GM at one point in an over the board game and got totally murdered. Like he went through the whole way with the rook takes h5 and everything. I should probably find that game because it's a pretty cool one. But yeah, h4, h5, knight takes h5, and rook takes h5. It was Varusian Akobian. I played him at like the Los Angeles Chess Club a long time ago, and he was one of the strongest players I've ever played over the board. But he was just playing some random like Saturday, Sunday tournament, and he just destroyed me. Like I was playing the Dutch at that point, and like the Leningrad Dutch at that point, and he destroyed me out of some rook takes h5 thing. If you're a good tactical player, it's an opportunity for white against the Dutch to really show off your tactical strength. Yeah, no, it was pretty monstrous. Like those guys are just so good. But yeah. Anyways, if you're looking for like a good aggressive attack against the Dutch, there's some fun ones that involve h4, h5, and rook takes h5. So if you have a minute, you can take a look at some opening theory, trainers for that. But anyways, yeah, h3, bishop e7, g4. Yeah, overall, this is a good game, a good quick game, good win here. Basically, I think the bishop to c4 threat was a little bit superficial. I think just sort of getting more pieces involved in your ultimate attack is probably a better idea. But here, yeah, you end up capitalizing with the strong bishop takes f5 move, and after bishop takes f5, white's in a pretty good position, and ultimately gets a mate on move 16. So obviously that worked for you, which is the most important thing. Yeah, I would look if you're looking for kind of these aggressive attacks that might get you some quick wins, cool looking wins at class level. There's some good material out of the h4 advance against the g6 Leningrad Dutch. But overall, yeah, I think good game, cool, good win out of 16 moves. It's always awesome when that happens. So yeah, thank you very much for sending it in, Mikey. I'll try to figure out what's going on with that corrupted game. I don't know exactly what that is, but thank you very much for everyone for sending in games and for participating in the stream. My next lesson is at 6:05 p.m. Eastern. I hope you guys can make it, and please keep sending in games. Anything you send in, we're gonna get to tomorrow. So thanks very much for being here. Have a good day, and I'll see you hopefully at 6:05 p.m. Eastern. Thanks. Bye.